I moved into the upstairs corner unit because it felt honest. The paint was new, but the floor told the truth. Long scratches under the windows where some heavy dresser had lived, a sun-faded rectangle on the wall where a picture had hung for years. The building was older than the leasing photos suggested. Garden style, 2 stories, a square of grass in the middle where kids kicked a ball at dusk. The first night, I slept on a mattress on the floor with boxes as nightstands. At 3:11 a.m., the smoke detector chirped its opinion about the battery, and then stopped. I woke to silence, and the different silence of a place that hadn't learned me yet. The next morning I found something I hadn't put there, 3 pennies stacked on the kitchen counter. Shiny, dark, shiny, like a pattern. I told myself I'd drop them while unpacking and forgot. On Tuesday I met the neighbor downstairs, Leah, mid-30s, quick smile, her dog a nervous little metronome on the leash. "The walls are thin," she said, apologetic. "If you hear podcasts at 6 a.m., it's me trying to be a better person. I'll try not to vacuum at midnight," I said. We laughed. We traded names. We did not trade histories. I didn't tell her I was here because I picked the kind of place that would be easy to leave. By the second week, I had a habit of checking whether I'd locked the back slider. Each time I swore I'd left the blinds at a different angle than I found them. Then came the toothbrush, damp at 6 p.m. when I hadn't brushed since morning. I called the leasing office. "Not possible," the manager said. His voice had a smile I could hear but not like. "We rekeyed before you moved in. Only maintenance has master access. You're on the 2nd floor. You're fine. I want the locks changed again," I said. "We can do a courtesy rekey for a fee." I paid it. I slept with a chair under the handle like in a cheap motel. The chair held. The feeling did not. Friday night I dumped a line of baby powder across the inside of the front door and back slider. A petty trap, the kind that makes you feel silly even as you're making it. I took a photo of the perfect white line, went to bed, and woke to a smear the width of a finger and a half-moon mark missing from the powder by the slider. I had the kind of job where being late gets noticed, but I stood there anyway, heart doing kettlebell swings, and told myself I'd stepped in it without noticing. I wiped it, washed my feet, went to work, and spent the day seeing half-moons in every smudge. That night the smoke detector chirped again. This time the sound came from just above the bedroom closet, where a square of painted wood set into the ceiling made an almost door. I noticed it on move-in day and filed it under old building things. I got the step stool, poked at the hatch, and felt cool air on my knuckles. "Don't," I told myself, and climbed down. I slept with the closet light on. On Saturday, I bought a pack of sticky notes and a roll of clear tape. My mother used to tie a hair across her bedroom door when she was alone in our house, a homegrown alarm. I didn't have hair long enough anymore, so I stretched tape across the closet seam and pressed yellow notes half on, half off drawers I rarely opened. I set my phone to record the quiet while I ran errands. When I came back, the closet tape hung loose at one corner like a tired eyelid. I listened to the audio on my couch, jumping at my own fridge. Just before noon, under the hum of traffic and kids in the courtyard, there was a soft, grinding sound, something like a shoe sole turning on drywall. Then a thump. Then nothing for minutes. Then a faint whispering like plastic brushing fabric. I scrubbed back and forth. The noises were there, and then they weren't, like they'd been careful to happen. I went downstairs to Leah's door and hovered my hand over the knocker. The dog heard me first, started its metronome yapping, and Leah opened with a smile that faded when she saw my face. "Is everything okay? Do you ever hear things up?" I tilted my head like a dog myself. "Like in the ceiling?" She glanced at my ceiling, her ceiling. "Sometimes squirrels get in the attic line," she said. "Maintenance puts out traps. There's an attic? Connects all the units. I think it's mostly dead space and insulation." "Why?" My smoke detector chirps. "I set tape on my closet and it moved." Leah looked at me, measuring how far out on a limb she wanted to join me. "Do you want me to come up and look?" she asked finally. The hatch above the closet was a square of paint over wood with a little notch where a hook might go. Leah stood on my step stool and tapped the corner with a broom handle. It didn't budge. "It's probably painted shut," she said. "Old buildings. They seal things and forget." We stared at it like it might blink. "Do you smell that?" I asked. She sniffed. "Like old dust and maybe bleach?" "Bleach," I said. "Maybe from the last tenant." I didn't know anything about the last tenant. I realized that was a kind of ignorance I could fix. When Leah left, after insisting I text her if anything else felt off, I went digging online. The building had a dozen reviews, the usual mix: complaints about parking, praise for the trees, a one-star post about a plumbing issue that read like a manifesto. Buried in a year-old thread was a comment: "Check your attic access. They don't lock them." I stared at that sentence until my phone dimmed. I bought 2 carbon monoxide detectors and a cheap camera that said it would notify me of human motion. I put 1 detector in the hallway and 1 in the bedroom. The camera I set on top of the bookshelf, a little cyclops eye pointed at my door. When I went to shower, I set another line of powder by the slider and by the closet. I stood under the water until it ran cold. Steam unrolled into the bedroom when I opened the bathroom door. The apartment held its breath. I checked the powder. Clean lines, unbroken. The closet tape, still taut. The bookshelf camera's tiny status light had gone from blue to off. I moved closer. A square of black tape covered the lens. The tape wasn't mine. It's a particular cold you feel when you touch something in your home that you did not put there. My fingers came away sticky. I stared at the tape, then at the door and window, then at the hatch. A minute passed, then 2, the way minutes pass when you're deciding if you're being watched. I put on shoes and left. Downstairs, Leah opened the door before I knocked twice. "Hey! Someone was in my apartment." My voice came out steady, a surprise. "They covered my camera." She stepped into the hall, closed her door behind her, the dog skittering back. "Call the police," she said. "I'm coming up with you." I dialed. The dispatcher's voice was brisk, competent, distant in that way that makes you both safer and lonelier. "Are they still in your apartment?" "I don't know." "Do not go in. Officers are en route." We stood in the breezeway like 2 actors waiting for our cue. The courtyard felt suddenly theater flat. When the patrol car pulled in, the officers did a sweep, hands on holsters, voices calling, "Police!" like a ritual. They checked the bathroom, under the bed, the balcony. One shone a flashlight into the attic hatch. The beam cut a rectangle of dust and nothing. "No sign of forced entry," he said, and it sounded like a verdict. "Your lock's intact. Sliders are intact. My camera has tape on it," I said. His partner peeled it off, a quick pop. "Could be a prank," she said. "Do you have roommates, an ex with a key?" "It's just me. We can talk to management, request maintenance access logs." The manager arrived in a golf cart, smiling like he had a setting. He unlocked nothing, because there was nothing to unlock. "Only I and our tech have masters," he assured everyone. "Our policy is very clear." "What about the attic?" I asked. He blinked. "What about it? Does it lock?" "It's sealed." The female officer rapped the hatch again. Dust fell like a sigh. "Sealed," she repeated. They left with a case number that felt like a sticker masking something broken. Leah lingered in the hall. "You can crash on my couch tonight," she offered. The dog pressed its head to her shin in agreement. "I'll be okay," I lied. "Thank you." When the light was out and I'd memorized the shape of my own hand in the glow from the street lamp, the smoke detector chirped again. I got up, pulled a chair under it, and twisted it off its mount. The plastic was warm and light in my palm. I popped the battery compartment. No battery. Inside, a tiny board with a blinking red dot, and a memory card the size of my fingernail. I didn't sleep. I took pictures, the board, the card, the hollow battery bay. At 7, I carried the detector to the leasing office and asked for the manager. He wasn't there. His assistant frowned at the device like it was a strange fruit. "I'll have maintenance take a look," she said. "Please don't," I said, surprising myself. "I'm filing a report." I went back upstairs and knocked on Leah's door. She read my face like a headline. At my table we stared at the memory card as if it might grow a mouth and confess. "Do we look?" she asked. "Can we not?" I asked in the same breath. We both laughed, a brittle sound. She went to get her laptop while I paced. When she slid the card into a tiny reader and plugged it in, we hesitated one last second, and then Leah clicked. There I was, small and grainy, brushing my teeth. There I was, bent to tie a shoe. There I was, sleeping, the camera's point of view fixed, absolute, uncaring. The video had timestamps. The first clip was from the day I moved in. The last was the day before. Soundless. Familiar. Violating. We watched as far as we could stand. Then Leah unplugged the reader with a sharpness that felt like self-defense. "We need to give this to the police," she said. Before we could, my phone buzzed. The manager. "Maintenance can come by at 2 p.m. to check your detector." "Tell them no," Leah hissed. "Yes," I said into the phone and hung up. "We'll leave." We planned like amateurs, which is to say we wrote it out with our hearts loud in our throats. I would pretend to leave at 1:30, make noise on the stairs, carry a bag to my car. Leah would be in my bedroom with her phone, recording. I would come back around the other side, slip in quietly, and wait in the hallway out of sight of the front door. If someone used a master key, we'd catch them. If someone came through the hatch, we'd hear it. At 1:25 I stood in my doorway, palms damp. "You don't have to do this," Leah said. "I can't sleep here if I don't know," I said. I made a show of locking the door on my way out. Down in the parking lot I put the bag in my back seat and got in the front, closing the door with the loud thump of the nervous. I counted to 60, then 60 again. A kid on a scooter traced loops in the courtyard, oblivious to the wire we were tightening across the afternoon. At 1:52, Leah texted. "Nothing yet." At 1:58. "Hold on." My phone vibrated again. "Footsteps," her text read. Then, above. I slid out of the car and walked the long way, behind the hedges, past the laundry room, my heartbeat in my ears. At the top of the stairs, the hall felt thinner than a hallway should feel. I eased my key into the lock. It turned silently. I pushed the door open 2 inches and stopped. From the bedroom came a soft scraping, like cardboard dragged on rafters. Then a hiss of insulation. Then a sound I still hear when the night goes quiet, the slow, careful exhale of someone trying not to breathe. I know now that the attic line sits like a tunnel of air above those old units, a shallow crawl space barely tall enough for an adult to move through without eating dust, thin plywood thrown over joists like stepping stones. That afternoon, all I knew was the rectangle in my bedroom ceiling was lifting a fraction of an inch, and a pale knuckle bulged against the paint. Leah, camouflaged by my closet door, texted one word. "Here." I stepped into the hall, phone camera up, and said, as calmly as I could, "I'm on the phone with the police. Get out." The hatch froze. A whisper of plaster fell like snow. Then the panel shifted more, enough to show an eye, gray, bloodshot, utterly unastonished. The eye slid to me, then to the closet where Leah hid. The pale knuckle withdrew. The hatch began to lower, careful as a lid. I grabbed the broom and jabbed upward. The hatch jumped. A thin, filthy hand shot down to steady it. The wrist was coiled with a hospital bracelet gone brown. I saw the tremor, the tendons standing out like cables, and the underside of the hatch where a loop of wire had been screwed in for a hook we didn't have. Leah moved, fast and louder than fear, hitting the record button and stepping into view. "We have you on video," she said. "Don't move." He moved. The hatch popped up, and something scuttled backward across wood, away into the dark. I heard the scuff of motion the care a body takes to distribute weight, and then the noise retreated along the joists, toward the hallway and, God, the common landing. I ran. Leah ran with me. In the breezeway, a shower of dust fell from the seam where the hallway ceiling met the wall, and then, with a sound like a tight suitcase unzipping, a second, narrower panel lifted above the stairwell landing. A face appeared, a man in his 50s, maybe, cheeks cave-in gaunt, a beard clipped close not by care but by snag, eyes that had learned to stare through wood. He saw us see him. For a heartbeat, all of us froze in mutual recognition, and then he tried to drop. He misjudged the distance and fell badly, a flail of limbs and a crack of ankle meeting edge. He hit the landing, rolled, and made it 3 lurching steps before Leah yelled, a raw sound that did something to my spine, and I side-tackled him into the railing. We went down in a clatter of keys and a smell of unwashed clothing and damaged fruit. Help! Leah screamed, to the courtyard, to the sky. A door opened. Another. Footsteps. The man thrashed once, then went very still in that way that says the fight is waiting for another chance. By the time the police arrived, Leah had both hands pressed on the man's shoulder blades and I had his wrists pinned, the hospital bracelet cutting my palm. An officer knelt, breath steady, and took the wrists from me like you might take a breakable thing. Another officer looked up at the ragged hole in the ceiling. Call code enforcement, she said. And get maintenance out here now. The manager arrived in his cart with a man I'd never seen. The tech's face had that pale, nauseous focus of someone who builds the things and knows where they can fail. He stared at the hole, then at the loop screwed into the bottom of my hatch, and then at the man on the landing. I told you we needed to install pins, he said to the manager, voice flat and exhausted. Not just paint. The man on the landing did not speak. He watched dust fall through the light, as if it had told him a joke only he could hear. At the station they showed me photos, the crawl space above my unit dotted with empty water bottles and protein bar wrappers, a flattened pillow wrapped in a t-shirt, a coil of rope. The photos were so bright they looked clean. I pointed at the loop on my hatch in a close-up and asked, "Who put that there?" "Don't know yet," the detective said. "We'll let you know." Leah and I gave statements separately and then together, our voices aligning on certain words as if we'd rehearsed. They told us the man had a record of trespassing, public intoxication, a psychiatric hold last winter. He wasn't a maintenance worker. He wasn't, the detective said, anything to do with management. How did he get in? I asked. Into the attic? Could be from an end unit. Could be from a utility access. Could be someone let him in, some other time, for some other reason. These things, he gestured with a pen, a little circle in the air, are rarely one decision. They're a long series. The manager called me that night with the news setting on his voice, grave, as if reading from a script about empathy. We're so sorry for the distress you've experienced, he said. We'll be reimbursing you for the rekey fee and prorating your rent for the week. We'll also be sealing all attic accesses with tamper-proof hardware immediately. Were you recording me? I asked. Or did he swap the detector? A long inhale. Our devices are standard, he said. We'll cooperate fully with the investigation. That night I slept on Leah's couch with the dog on my feet like a sandbag. I woke at 3 to the distant chirp of someone else's detector and sat up so fast the dog squeaked. Leah murmured, "It's okay." Not fully awake. In the morning, a woman I didn't know knocked on Leah's door. "I'm in 7B, she said when Leah opened it. "They took a camera out of my smoke detector too." She held a plastic eye in her hand like an accusation. "I thought I was going crazy. I thought my ex." Leah invited her in. I made coffee. We were 3 strangers in a triangle of safety, trying not to look at the ceiling. The new woman cried when she saw the memory card reader on the table. She took a turn in the bathroom to splash water on her face and came back with a question that felt like it had a metal rod in it. "Do we sue them?" she asked. "Or do we move?" I remembered the bright photos of the crawl space, the small life the man had made in the dust. "Both," I said, and surprised myself by how certain I sounded. One takes longer. Even when nothing is left undone, hardware installed, management replaced, detectives calling with polite closures, there are things that stay. You learn your body can count 30 seconds without a clock because that's how long it takes for someone to move quietly from one joist to the next. You look up when you enter rooms, not for the light fixture, but for rectangles. You wash a new smoke detector in light before you mount it. Look at the back, the guts, the things you've never cared about before. Leah bought a step ladder and a set of screwdrivers. For my own peace of mind, she said. The dog accepted this as ritual. I moved 3 weeks later, not far, but far enough that the floor sounded like a different story. Before I left, I went upstairs one last time in the old unit. The hatch was a square with 4 silver tamper-proof screws. It looked like a medical stitch. I put my hand flat on the paint. No one lives here, I said as if to the space. When I signed the lease at the new place, I asked about attic locks like some people ask about parking. The manager did not blink. No attic access in units, she said. Shared spaces only. She slid me a key with a round brass head. I turned it in my palm, felt the weight. Leah texted me photos of her hallway with a new metal plate over her hatch. It's ugly, she wrote, but I like ugly today. I started sleeping again. It came back in increments, like strength after a sickness. Some nights I still woke at 3 for no reason that felt like a reason, stood in the kitchen, drank water, heard nothing, went back to bed, and told myself the truth. Most of the night, most of the places, most of the time, no one is above you. And sometimes someone is. The detective called once more, months later. He took a plea, he said. There's a restraining order attached to your name. He's barred from the property and from your new address. You have my new address? I asked. A pause. Through the victim liaison. It's standard. You're protected. I hung up and bought curtains. Leah and I still text when a smoke alarm chirps in a store aisle or a light flickers in a restaurant, laughing at how our bodies go rigid for a beat and then soften like we've negotiated with our nerves. I keep the little memory card at the back of a drawer, not as a memento but as an answer to that whisper that sometimes rises in my throat and asks if I imagined any of it. I hold it, feel the tiny, hateful weight, and put it away. Once, on a Sunday, I saw the manager from the old place at a farmer's market, not in his polo but in a t-shirt that said something about a charity run. He squinted at me like I was familiar from a dream you can't place. I walked past without stopping, and in the corner of my eye, I watched him look up, just briefly, at the rafters of the market pavilion, as if remembering. Then he looked down, back to his stall, to his script, to his smile. I looked up too, to the beams, to the honest space between them. I breathed, counted to 30 just to see if I could, and found I couldn't anymore. That was its own kind of relief. Relief loosened something, enough that I stopped counting the seconds between floor creaks. Days went by without incident. I memorized the safe noises of the new place, the elevator cables thrumming at 7:10, the neighbor's laugh that popped like a cork, the hiss from the baseboard when the building decided we were cold. I let myself be somebody who could drop keys in a bowl and not look up at the ceiling first. On a Wednesday, I came home to a white envelope on the floor against my door, slid under from the hall. No stamp. My name typed, not handwritten, centered with a small cruelty. Inside, a letter on thick paper. We at Riverside Property Group care deeply about resident safety. In light of your recent experience at our sister community, we are pleased to extend a goodwill credit equal to 1 month's rent contingent upon a mutual non-disparagement agreement. The letter went on. There was a second page, the agreement, general and oily. At the bottom, a line that snapped like a mousetrap. Please return the enclosed key fob to the 700 Courtyard office at your earliest convenience. There on the table, when I shook the envelope again, a blue plastic fob slid out and spun to a stop. I knew that fob. It was the laundry room access from the old complex. Someone had carried this envelope down my hall. Someone had my name and my door number and a drawer with old keys, and the Venn diagram of those someones was not a circle I wanted to look at. I called Leah and read her the first paragraph. "Don't sign," she said, immediate. "Don't give them anything." "I'm more stuck on the fob," I said. "And that they knew where to put the envelope." "Call the detective," she said. "Then your new office. Ask if they share data." The detective sounded tired in the way of professionals whose work involves patterns instead of people. "Property groups swap tenants like baseball cards," he said. "They probably manage both. The fob is sloppy or intentional. Either way, don't engage directly. Document everything." Downstairs, the new leasing office was all glass and succulents. The manager, a woman with the calm of someone trained to apply calm-like makeup, smiled. "We did not place anything at your door," she said. "Corporate may have sent a rep. We can email them." "Corporate slid something under my door without knocking," I said. "That's not okay." Her smile didn't move, but something behind it did. "I agree," she said. "I'll ask that all communications go through us." Back upstairs, I installed a door wedge alarm I'd bought online and never taken out of the box. I told myself I was being reasonable. At 9, while I was brushing my teeth, the alarm squealed itself awake, a shrill, unsteady whine like a teakettle having second thoughts, then cut off. I went still, toothpaste bitter cold in my mouth. The wedge sat where I'd put it, red LED blinking, door unmoved. I spit, rinsed, stood, listened. The hall beyond my door gave me nothing. Through the peephole, carpet, a sliver of wall, the banal geometry of safety. I opened the door on the chain the way a person does after they've taught themselves to move quietly. No one. But on the doormat, 3 pennies stacked, shiny on top, dark in the middle, shiny beneath. I didn't touch them. I got a paper towel and folded the little column into it like a bug. The night had that late weekday feel where the building has gone to sleep but the machines haven't. In the silence, I could hear my own breath, how I was taking short ones. Leah texted back fast when I sent the photo. 3 messages in a row. "No, absolutely not. Sleep here." Then, after a beat, "Camera on your peephole?" "Not yet," I wrote. "No," she wrote. I installed a cheap door camera, angry with my hands. After, I lay on the couch and watched the feed on my phone, the empty hall, the static crosshatch of the carpet, the occasional ghosting pixel. Nothing happened. It was a victorious kind of nothing. At 2 in the morning the camera buzzed with a motion alert. I thumbed it open to a view of shoes. Men's dark, old-fashioned soles with a crescent of wear on the inside edge. The frame jumped as the wearer did something close to the floor, then tilted back up and caught half a trouser leg and the corner of a clipboard. A hand entered the top of the frame and pressed to the door, right where my deadbolt sat on the other side. The hand stayed there for 6 slow seconds, a palm against veneer, as if feeling a heartbeat. Then the shoes turned, out of frame, and the hall returned to its geometry. I didn't sleep after that. Morning made everything look ridiculous, the way morning does. I blew past ridiculous and printed the still of the palm. When the office opened, I was waiting with the page and my throat too tight. "That's our courtesy night patrol," the manager said, baffled when I slapped the still below the succulents. "Third-party contractor. We can ask them not to touch doors. Or you can ask them to knock like people," I said. "And maybe not stack coins." She blinked. "Stack coins?" I put the paper towel on her counter and unrolled the pennies. Shiny, dark, shiny, like a pattern, like a memory someone wanted me to reorder around. Her face finally did something I trusted. She looked upset. She typed an email I could see from my angle had "urgent" in the subject. On the way back upstairs, the elevator stopped at 3. The doors slid open to a man with a mop and a cart, and a face I knew only by the way it didn't react to anything. He looked at the printed still poking out from my folder, then at me. I felt the old urge to count to 30. I didn't. I got off on 4, even though I lived on 5, and took the stairs the rest of the way. At my door, the camera lit up as I approached, and for a second the screen showed me holding a picture of a hand pressed right where mine was about to go. I stood there, the dumb theater of it all laid out like tape on a floor, and then I unlocked and went in and locked again. I ate breakfast standing up. I left the envelope and the fob on the table. I went to work and ignored my phone until lunch, when there was a new email from an address that looked like a randomly generated apology. The subject line read, "Goodwill credit follow-up." The body was short. "We're here to help. We just need your signature." Under it a link. And under the link, a line I didn't understand until I read it twice. "If you have any concerns about the video, we can arrange a secure deletion." What video? What video? I reread the line until the words throbbed. It didn't say a video. It said the video, like we both knew which one. My stomach clenched around the word. I closed the email, opened it again, hoping it would change. It didn't. The link hovered there, a silent invitation to ruin. Leah answered on the first ring. "What video?" she repeated after I read it to her. "The one from the detector," I said. My voice sounded small, like I was speaking from the bottom of a jar. "But the police have that card. They could have copied it. Or there's another. Or they're bluffing." The possibility was a flare in the dark. Bluffing. Testing how much I'd pay to keep myself unspooled. "Don't click the link," Leah said. "Forward it to the detective." I did. Then I shoved my laptop like it might bite. The rest of the day passed in pieces. Phone buzzes, meetings I didn't hear, my hand going automatically to my pocket for keys I already had. Every hallway felt like a waiting room. That night, I stayed on the couch again. The pennies sat on the counter, and I didn't throw them away. Some part of me thought if I kept them where I could see them, they couldn't appear anywhere else. At 3:07 a.m., the door camera woke me. A motion alert. My phone screen bloomed to grainy light, the hallway empty. Then a shift, so subtle I thought it was pixel drift. A shadow stretched across the carpet, diagonal, sliding slow. Someone was standing out of frame, just to the left of the peephole. I turned my head toward the door like it could betray me. The chain rattled faintly in the silence. The figure leaned in, and I caught it this time, a shoulder brushing into the camera's edge, then gone. Still there, though. I could feel it. Whoever it was stayed just outside the fisheye lens, out of sight but close enough that I imagined the heat of their body bleeding through the door. The waiting was worse than any knock. I texted Leah one word. "Call." A minute later, the shadow shrank and slid away. Nothing moved except the red blink of the camera. Leah texted, "Want me up there?" "No," I typed. "Stay." At dawn, I opened the door. The hall was quiet, beige, normal. No pennies. No envelope. But taped over the peephole from the outside was a square of black plastic, the exact size of the lens. I peeled it off with shaking fingers. On the back, written in blue marker, one word: smile. I didn't go to work. I didn't even move for an hour, just sat with the word in my hand until I realized I was gripping it hard enough to leave sweat marks on the plastic. The detective's voicemail was tired again. "Forward us the photo of the plastic," he said when he called back. "We'll add it to the file. If you want, we can increase patrols in your area." "If I want?" I asked. "They taped my peephole. We don't have a suspect tied to that action yet. It could be kids. Kids don't send legal agreements," I said. Silence. Then, "We'll follow up." I hung up before my voice broke. Leah came over with the dog, who sniffed every corner like he'd been hired. She set a grocery bag on my counter. "I brought bagels. And this." She pulled out a small black device. "What's that?" "A second camera. We'll hide it in the bookshelf. 2 eyes are better than one." We set it up, pointing at the living room. Leah showed me the feed on her phone, a twin angle to my own. "They want you scared," she said. "Don't give it all away." That night, I lay in bed with both cameras on my phone, one showing the door, the other the living room. Static silence. At 2:40 a.m., the feed glitched. Both cameras at once, a flicker, a cut to black, then back. The living room feed returned first. The couch, the table, the envelope still there. Then movement. Not the door. Not me. The envelope was gone. I sat up so fast the phone slipped from my hands. The door feed stayed frozen, stuck on the empty hall. But the living room showed nothing on the table. No envelope. I hadn't moved. No one had come through the door. Something in the apartment had taken it. The envelope was gone. I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the phone like maybe the feed would apologize and return it. The table sat bare, the kind of emptiness that becomes an accusation. I hadn't moved it. Leah hadn't. And yet. I walked to the living room, slow, every step rehearsed in my head. The table was exactly as the feed showed, nothing on it but a faint rectangle of dust where the envelope had rested. No flap on the floor, no fob under the couch. The paper towel with the pennies was still there, so close I could smell the faint metallic tang. But the envelope, that thick, smug paper, was simply gone. I opened drawers, checked the trash, even lifted the couch cushions. Nothing. Back in the bedroom, the phone still showed the hallway camera frozen on an empty frame. My skin prickled with the thought, someone had jammed it. Not just jammed, but blinded me, reached in, plucked the one thing that tied this all together, and left. I called Leah. She answered groggy, voice tilted with sleep. What? They took it, I whispered. What do you mean they? The envelope. It's gone. A pause. I'll be right there. When she arrived, the dog barreling in first, I felt a relief so sharp it almost hurt. We tore the place apart together, checking cabinets, closets, even the fridge. No envelope. Leah pressed her palms into the counter, steadying herself. You didn't throw it away in your sleep? No, I said. It was here. It's not now. We replayed the living room footage. That flicker at 2:40 a.m., a smear of static, then the table bare. No figure, no movement, no sound. Just gone. This isn't possible, Leah said. But her voice wasn't steady anymore. The next morning, I called the detective again. His voice had lost patience. Evidence doesn't disappear, he said. It did. What you're describing sounds like equipment malfunction. I watched it vanish. We'll send someone to check your cameras. In the meantime, try to get some rest. He said it the way doctors say drink fluids. Dismissal dressed up as care. Leah stayed while I napped, the dog stretched across my feet like a sandbag. When I woke, she was standing in the hallway, staring at the ceiling. What? I asked. She pointed. Above the bathroom, the ceiling paint was cracked in a faint rectangle. The kind of crack that only comes from something pressing down. That wasn't there yesterday, she whispered. We both knew what that meant. The dog started barking at the ceiling, high and frantic. I dragged the step ladder from the closet, heart climbing ahead of me. Leah grabbed my wrist. Don't, she said. But I did. The rectangle shifted under my hand, soft against the pressure. A hatch, painted over, but not sealed. When I pressed harder, a flake of plaster fell. The smell hit first, dust, sweat, and something older, rancid sweet. Leah backed away, hand over her mouth. No. No. I lowered the ladder, the hatch still above us like an eyelid half closed. We're calling now, I said. No more waiting. She nodded, already dialing, her voice breaking as she said the words. There's someone in the ceiling. And even before the dispatcher answered, we both heard it, up above the bathroom, the faint scrape of movement, careful, measured, like someone crawling away. The dispatcher's voice was clipped. Stay calm. Officers are en route. Do not attempt to engage. But every sound above us made that impossible. A long drag of fabric against wood. The thump of a knee, the shuffle of weight distributed slow and deliberate. Whoever was up there wasn't panicked. They were moving with the patience of someone who knew the paths. The dog went rigid, teeth bared at the ceiling. I gripped the ladder like a weapon. Leah whispered, "Don't, please don't." Then came a pause. Silence so dense we could hear the dogs panting. I thought maybe whoever was above had stopped. Maybe they were waiting for us to move first. And then, faintly, a whisper. Not words, just the cadence of someone muttering to themselves, broken syllables threaded with a wet rasp. Leah clutched my arm hard enough to hurt. The muttering cut off. A new sound, a low, hollow creak, like a door hinge opening in slow motion. Directly over the living room. I grabbed my phone, switched to the ceiling camera. For a split second, the feed glitched, pixels tearing sideways. Then it came back, and in the upper corner, I saw dust falling in a slow stream. The hatch above the living room was lifting. "Out!" Leah hissed. "We get out now." We bolted. I yanked the door open, chains snapping against the frame, and we spilled into the hall. Leah's dog yelped, dragged along on the leash. Halfway to the elevator, I made the mistake of looking back. The living room light was still on, spilling a bright triangle through the open door. And in that triangle, a hand, pale, filthy, familiar, gripped the frame of the hatch from inside the ceiling, pulling it wider. The officers arrived minutes later, too late to catch the shape that had disappeared back into the ceiling. They swept the apartment, flashlights cutting through dust like blades. One of them poked the hatch with a baton, but no one came down. A ladder was brought. They climbed into the crawl space. I waited in the hall, heart banging like it wanted out. The officer's voice came muffled through insulation. "Got bedding. Wrappers. Bucket. Rope." Another voice. "Bag here, letters. Envelopes." I pushed past them before anyone could stop me. The crawl space stank of sweat gone sour, of metal and bleach. My flashlight beam skated over the pitiful nest, a pillow black with dirt, candy wrappers folded neatly into stacks, a cracked plastic bucket shoved against the joist. And the bag. A canvas grocery bag, damp at the bottom. Inside, white envelopes. At least 6. Each with a typed name. The top one had mine. Leah's was beneath it. And then others, unit numbers I didn't recognize, but all with the same blue fob taped to the flap like an ugly seal. "Bag it," the officer said, his voice sharp. "Bag all of it." I couldn't stop staring at mine. It looked identical to the one that had vanished from my table. Same crease, same clipped corners. Except this one hadn't been opened yet. Which meant... "They replaced it," I whispered. "What?" Leah asked, still crouched in the hatch. "They didn't take it. They swapped it." The officer shoved the bag into evidence plastic. "That's enough," he barked. We climbed down. My hands shook on the rungs. The ceiling hatch hung open above, dust still drifting like snow. Leah wouldn't let go of my arm. "Why us?" she whispered. I didn't answer. Because in that moment, watching the officer zip the bag, I understood something worse than why. It wasn't just us. It was the whole building. They herded us into the lobby while maintenance hammered metal plates over the hatches. Dust rained down in the hallways, a snowfall of insulation that made the fluorescent lights flicker. Residents gathered in knots, whispering, clutching coffee mugs and robes. A woman in slippers kept asking, "Is it safe? Is it safe?" Like she might wear the answer home if someone gave it. The detective showed up, hair mussed like he'd come straight from bed. He held one of the envelopes in a gloved hand, frowning at the typeface like it was a confession. "All of these were prepped," he said. "Names, unit numbers. Some of them had notes inside." "What kind of notes?" I asked. He didn't answer, but his silence was thick enough that everyone around him leaned in. He finally said, "You don't need the details right now." Leah crossed her arms. "You're wrong. We do need them." The detective sighed and pulled a folded page from another evidence bag. He held it out just enough for us to see. It wasn't typed. It was handwritten, cramped and slanted. Lines of it, running to the edges. I only caught fragments before he folded it back. "Don't smile until I say. The crawl is safe, the crawl is clean. Coins show me who listens. My mouth went dry. Coins, I whispered. Leah's hand tightened around my sleeve. The detective tucked the note away. We'll get Prince. We'll track it. Right now, go somewhere else for the night. Hotel, friend's place. Don't come back until we call. The crowd rippled with uneasy relief. Orders meant safety. But as Leah and I walked to the parking lot, the dog skittering beside us, I felt the building watching. Every vent. Every shadowed seam. Every line where ceiling met wall. This wasn't over. Not if the whole building had been marked. We checked into a mid-tier hotel off the freeway, the kind with carpets that hummed with bleach. Leah insisted on adjoining rooms, doors propped open so the dog could patrol between. For the first time in weeks, I slept under a ceiling with nothing but sprinklers and a popcorn texture above me. Morning came, pale and ordinary. I almost believed the night had been a fever dream, until I found the envelope. It was on the desk, propped neatly against the lamp. White. Thick. My name typed in the same indifferent font. Leah was still brushing her teeth when I brought it to her room. She froze, foam at her mouth, eyes wide. How? She whispered. I shook my head. I locked my door. The dog growled low, staring at the envelope. I opened it. Inside wasn't a contract this time. Just a single photo, printed on cheap paper. It was me, sleeping in the hotel bed. The angle was from above. The photo trembled in my hand, my breath frosting the air between me and it. Leah spat the toothpaste into the sink and grabbed it from me. Her eyes ran the image top to bottom like she might find a trick in the ink. It's grainy, she said. Could be doctored. But her voice cracked on could. I lifted my gaze slowly to the ceiling of the hotel room. Popcorn plaster, yellowing vent near the wall, sprinkler head with a ring of rust. Nothing unusual, except now, every shadow felt like a mouth. The dog barked at the vent. We dragged the desk chair over. I climbed up, hard hammering, and pressed my ear against the vent. Nothing. Just the smell of metal and mildew. I loosened the screws with the room key, cheap, soft metal biting the slot. The cover came away in my hand. Behind it, darkness. Deeper than I expected. More space than a hotel vent should allow. Leah stood below, clutching the dog's collar. Don't, she said. But I did. I pushed my phone into the gap, flashlight on. The screen showed ductwork stretching farther than it should, an impossible corridor of sheet metal. And there, 20 feet down, a smudge of fabric dragging out of sight. Something was in the ducts. I yanked the phone back, nearly dropping it. My hand shook so badly the light jittered across the room. It's not just the building, I whispered. Leah's face had gone white. Then it's them. Whoever they are. They followed you here. The hotel manager didn't believe us until we showed the photo. His hand shook as he radioed security. By the time they unscrewed more vents and sent a maintenance worker in with a light, the duct was empty, just dust, rat droppings, and one thing left behind. A penny. Shiny. Balanced perfectly on the seam of the duct. The police came again. Questions piled on questions. How long had I known? Who knew I was here? Did I tell anyone besides Leah? I heard myself answering in a flat voice, as though the words were receipts I had to hand over. They bagged the penny like it was proof of something bigger, though none of us knew what. That night, Leah insisted we leave the lights on in both rooms. The dog whined but settled between our doors, ears pricked to the silence. I dozed in waves, phone clutched in my hand, the photo still open on the screen. At 3:14 a.m., my phone buzzed with a new email. No sender name. No subject. Just a single line in the body. Smile. And an attachment. I opened it before I could stop myself. It was a video. Grainy infrared. Me, standing on the hotel desk chair, peering into the vent. My own face staring into the lens that wasn't mine. Behind me in the frame, Leah stood in the bathroom doorway, mouth open mid-word. The dog barked, frozen in time. The camera angle was from above me. Inside the vent. They'd been filming the whole time. I dropped the phone like it burned. It hit the carpet, video still running, me in miniature, frozen in that impossible angle. Leah bent, saw the screen, and recoiled so sharply she slammed into the wall. They were right there, she whispered. Right above you. The dog barked again, snapping the silence into splinters. I killed the video, but the damage was done. My head filled with the geometry of it, ducks above, thin metal skin separating me from whoever had been filming, whoever had leaned close enough to record my breath. We didn't sleep. At dawn, we left the hotel. The manager comped the rooms without argument, his eyes fixed anywhere but ours. Back in the car, Leah asked, "Where now?" I stared through the windshield at the morning traffic, every car suddenly suspicious. "Not home," I said. "Then where?" I didn't answer. Because the only answer was nowhere safe. The detective rang just after noon. His tone was clipped businesslike. "We pulled partial prints from the crawl space. They match a John Doe, no ID, transit record, psych ward hold last year. But here's the problem, he's still in custody." "What?" "He's been locked up since March. Which means whoever was in your ceiling isn't him." Leah leaned close to the phone. "So there's more than one." The detective hesitated. "It looks that way." My stomach dropped. All those envelopes. All those typed names. Not just the work of one man, but a pattern. The detective cleared his throat. "Until we know more, I recommend you relocate. Stay with family. Friends. Somewhere not connected to your name." "I don't have family here," I said. "Then a shelter program. We can coordinate." I hung up before he finished. Leah glared. "You can't just." "They're everywhere," I said, voice breaking. "In the walls, the vents, the ceilings. Where am I supposed to go that doesn't have those?" The dog whined, pressing against Leah's leg like it understood. We sat in silence. Then my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. No caller ID. I almost let it go, but something in me needed to hear. I answered. A man's voice, whispering, "Don't smile until I say." Then the line clicked dead. We drove aimlessly, as if distance itself could scrub us clean. Eventually Leah pulled into a diner, the kind with chrome trim and sticky booths. Coffee arrived, black and endless. The dog curled under the table. Leah said, "It's organized. The notes, the envelopes. It's not just some drifter." I nodded. My hands shook on the mug. "It's a group." The word hung between us like smoke. Behind the counter, a small TV played the local news. A story about housing code violations scrolled by, shots of an old apartment complex with police tape fluttering. Leah pointed. "That's your building." The anchor's voice floated over the diner hum. "Multiple residents reporting unauthorized access, hidden crawl space network, investigation ongoing." And then, in the footage I saw it. Blurred for broadcast but unmistakable. A pile of white envelopes, names typed across the fronts. Dozens of them. More than had been in the bag we'd seen. The camera lingered too long, as though daring someone to recognize their name. Leah whispered, "How many buildings do they own?" I couldn't stop staring at the screen. Because behind the reporter, just for a second, in a top-floor window, someone stood in the shadows, face pale, motionless, watching. Watching like they knew I'd see them. The face in the window burned into me. Not the gaunt drifter we'd wrestled down on the landing. This was different, cleaner, younger, eyes too steady. A look that wasn't madness but recognition. "They're showing you," I whispered. "On purpose." Leah followed my gaze, her knuckles white around her coffee mug. "Or warning you." The dog whimpered beneath the booth, ears flat. We paid in crumpled bills and left. The sky outside was flat gray, as if someone had painted over the sun. I scanned every roofline, every vent, expecting to see pale faces pressed against glass. I couldn't go home. Couldn't go back to the hotel. So I did the only thing that felt possible. I drove to the edge of town, to a storage unit I'd rented months ago when moving. Concrete rows, corrugated doors, the smell of dust and oil. "We can stay here for a night," I said. "Nobody knows about it." Leah raised an eyebrow. "Except whoever keeps finding you." Still, she helped me drag a mattress onto the concrete floor. We shut the roll-up door, padlocked it from the inside, and sat with the dog wedged between us like a sentinel. The quiet was brutal. No pipes, no footsteps above. Just the ringing silence of sealed metal. For an hour, we almost relaxed. Then the first scrape came. A long, low drag along the corrugated roof of the unit. Leah's eyes went wide. The dog sprang up, barking at the ceiling. Another scrape. Then a metallic tap-tap-tap, deliberate, like a finger tracing the ridges of the roof. I grabbed my flashlight, killed the bulb, and aimed it upward. Dust rained down from the seam. "Impossible," Leah whispered. "These aren't connected." But the scraping moved overhead, traveling the length of the unit, stopping right above us. A pause. Then 3 heavy thuds, bang. 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 As if someone had dropped to their knees just inches above our heads. The dog went frantic, claws scraping concrete. I tilted the flashlight toward the roof seam. For a moment, just a moment, a pale eye peered down through the slit of shadow. We bolted. Threw the lock, yanked the door open, staggered into the night air. Rows of units stood still under floodlights, the silence too deep. Leah clutched my arm, whispering fast. "They're not just in one building. They're in all of them." We piled into the car, the dog whining, and peeled out of the lot. My heart slammed like the thuds on the roof, each beat too loud to ignore. 20 minutes later we pulled into Leah's place. Small, ground-floor unit. She hesitated before unlocking the door. "What if they've already been here?" Inside, it smelled normal. Dog toys, detergent, the faint musk of safety. We checked every corner, every closet. No hatches in the ceiling. No crawl spaces. Relief sagged my shoulders. For the first time in days, I thought maybe we'd found a crack they couldn't reach through. Then Leah's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She turned the screen toward me. It was a photo of her living room. Taken from the ceiling corner, looking down on us as we stood there checking locks. On the wall in the photo, above the couch, a message had been scrawled in black marker we hadn't seen before. "You're marked now." We spun toward the wall. The living room was bare, just a pale paint sheet had since moving in. No marker, no message. But in the photo, the words had been bold, bleeding black. Leah's hands shook so badly she dropped the phone. The dog barked at the ceiling corner where the photo had been taken, fur bristling. I climbed onto the couch and shone my flashlight into the seam where wall met ceiling. Nothing but dust and a spider web trembling in the beam. Still, the dog wouldn't stop barking, tail low, body rigid. "It's not there," I said, but the words felt hollow. Leah whispered, "Not anymore." The next morning, Leah called in sick. We sat at her table, both phones face down like they might bite. Sunlight through the blinds should have been ordinary, but it made stripes across the wall that reminded me of bars. She opened her laptop, typed, "Riverside Property Group Plus complaints." Page after page appeared, tenant boards, half-dead forums, reviews buried in search results. Most were noise, parking, rent hikes, mold. But then we found one. A comment from 2 years ago, a single paragraph. "If you get the pennies, you're already marked. Don't ignore the ceilings. They watch from the crawl. Don't smile until they say." Leah looked up, her face strained. "This isn't new." I leaned closer to the screen. The username was deleted, but the timestamp glared back, 2:13 a.m. "Middle of the night," I muttered. They posted while it was happening. Another review, buried deeper, read, "You'll think it's just one guy. It's not." Leah slammed the laptop shut. "We need to leave. Not hotels, not storage units. Gone." "Gone where?" "Somewhere without their buildings. Without vents. Without." Her phone buzzed. We both froze. Slowly, she flipped it over. Another message, no sender. A photo of her laptop, the review still on screen. Taken from behind her shoulder. We didn't speak. We just stared at the photo until the screen dimmed. My chest felt hollow, as though all the air had been traded out for static. "They're in here," Leah finally whispered. "Right now." The dog began growling, low and steady, at the back hallway that led to her bedroom. I grabbed the flashlight and stepped forward, each footfall deliberate. The hallway stretched longer than it should have, shadows bending. At the end, her bedroom door was cracked open. "Stay here," I said. She didn't answer, but I could feel her eyes burning into my back. I pushed the door wider. The blinds were closed, the bed unmade, everything in its place, except for one thing. On the pillow lay another envelope. White. Thick. My name on the front. Behind me, Leah's voice cracked. "Don't open it." But I already was. Inside, a single line handwritten in black marker, the same slant as the notes, from the crawlspace. The last tenant never left. And below it, a still image, grainy, printed from a video. It showed me and Leah, asleep side by side on the mattress in the storage unit. Above us in the frame, from the roof seam, a pale face stared straight into the lens. The photo trembled in my hands, the grainy face looking straight out at me. It wasn't the same gaunt man from before, nor the clean, pale one in the news footage. This one was different again, cheeks sunken, eyes wide with the stillness of someone who's waited too long in the dark. Leah pressed her fist to her mouth. "They've been everywhere. Storage, hotel, here, there's no place they aren't." The dog barked once, sharp, then slunk under the table, tail tucked. I flipped the photo over, hoping for nothing. Instead, scrawled across the back in the same cramped hand. "Smile when you see me." My stomach turned cold. We couldn't stay. We grabbed the dog, our phones, nothing else, and drove. No plan, no direction, just the freeway, miles unraveling beneath us like we could outrun ceilings. At a gas station an hour out, I went inside to buy coffee. A small TV bolted to the wall played the local news. Same anchor, same clipped cadence. But this time, the story wasn't about code violations. It was about us. The anchor's words droned. "2 residents, names withheld, have reported ongoing harassment at multiple properties managed by Riverside." And then, footage. Grainy black and white security video. Of me. At the gas pump outside, just minutes earlier, head down, card in hand. The angle was wrong, it wasn't from the station cameras. It was from above, inside the awning. The broadcast blurred my face, but I knew the slope of my shoulders, the jacket. The caption read, "Last tenant sighted." I dropped the coffee. The clerk looked up, startled. "You okay?" I didn't answer. I just backed out, into the cold air. Leah saw my face and didn't ask, just started the car. We drove until signs blurred. Leah's hands locked on the wheel, knuckles white. "It's not just buildings," she said. "Not just crawl spaces. They're everywhere. Cameras, vents, roofs, every angle above us." I nodded, throat too tight. The dog paced in the back, whining like it felt the tension in the air itself. My phone buzzed. Another message, no number. This time, a video. I almost didn't open it, but my thumb betrayed me. It was the gas station clip again. Me at the pump. Only now, the video didn't cut off when I turned back to the car. It followed me inside. The camera moved. Through the store door, across the aisle, past the counter, my own back filling the frame. And then, at the very end, the lens tilted up. Past the fluorescent lights, past the ceiling tiles, into the black gap above. Where something shifted, just enough to show a grin. A grin that widened. And widened. I dropped the phone like it had teeth. The screen clattered against the dash, the video still running. Leah grabbed it, saw the grin stretching wider, impossibly wide, then slammed the app shut with shaking fingers. "They want you to watch," she said. Her voice was flat, like a verdict. The dog whimpered in the back, pawing at the window as if begging to get out. The freeway lights strobed over us, every shadow slicing across the windshield into long, vertical bars. And in each one, for just a split second, I swore I saw the grin. Pale. Watching. By dawn, Leah pulled off the freeway into a smaller town, the kind with boarded-up shops and a single diner. We found a church-safe house listed on her phone, an old basement converted into a shelter. Cots, lockers, no ceilings low enough for crawl spaces. "We'll rest," Leah said. "Just for a day." The coordinator, a tired woman with a clipboard, welcomed us without questions. She led us to bunks against the far wall. The dog curled up at our feet immediately, finally calm. For the first time in weeks, I felt the edge of exhaustion crack into real sleep. The safe house hummed with low conversation, the shuffle of others seeking the same fragile peace. But when I woke hours later, something waited on the floor by my cot. 3 pennies. Stacked, shiny, dark, shiny. No one else in the room claimed them. No one even looked at me. Leah sat beside me, pale. "They marked you again." I shook my head. "Not just me. Us. Everyone who's here." We started asking quiet questions, moving from cot to cot. At first people were wary, but soon they opened up. Stories spilled. A man in the corner whispered that he'd moved 3 times and still woke to pennies on his sink. A woman clutched her child, saying she'd found a smoke detector with a blinking red light, but she lived in a trailer with no power. Another said he'd seen a face in the vent above his motel bed, smiling, waiting. It wasn't just us. It never had been. The coordinator came down the aisle, clipboard against her chest. I caught her eye and froze. Because taped to the back of her clipboard was a white envelope. Typed name. Mine. I stood too fast, chair scraping. She blinked at me, confused. "What's wrong?" I snatched the envelope. She looked at it like she'd never seen it before. "That wasn't, someone must have." But her voice wavered. I opened it. Inside, another photo. This one showed all of us, right there in the basement safe house, cots in neat rows. Taken from the ceiling. And across the bottom, in slanted black marker. "There are no last tenants. Only next." The air in the basement thinned. I felt every set of eyes turn toward me, though none of them could see the photo clearly. Leah took it, held it close, then covered her mouth. "They were here," she whispered. The dog began to growl, low and steady, not at a door or the aisle, but at the ceiling pipes above us. Rusted iron, low-hanging, sweating with condensation. I scanned them, hard hammering. "They don't need crawl spaces," I said. "They use anything above us." The coordinator stammered something about checking the vents, about calling maintenance, but no one moved. The silence felt like it had weight, pressing down from the pipes, from the concrete overhead. Then a sound came, 3 metallic taps. Deliberate. Directly above our row of bunks. Tap. 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 Like knuckles on a coffin lid. The whole room froze. And then dust sifted down from one of the pipes, falling across Leah's hair like gray snow. The coordinator panicked first, rushing for the stairs. Others followed, a chain reaction of fear. Shoes slapped the concrete, cots overturned. The basement became chaos. "Go!" Leah shouted, grabbing the dog's leash. She shoved me toward the door as dust continued to fall, more and more of it, like something crawling fast along the pipes above us. We barreled up the stairs into daylight. A handful of others stumbled out with us, breath ragged. The coordinator locked the door behind, though we all knew locks meant nothing to things that lived in ceilings. On the sidewalk we huddled, trembling. One of the men muttered, "No place safe. No place." His voice cracked on the last word until it wasn't even language anymore. Leah clutched my arm so hard it hurt. "We can't just keep running," she said. Her eyes were wet, furious. "We need to understand what they want." I thought of the coins. The notes. The smiles. The envelopes, always typed neat, always waiting. They want us to know we're marked, I said. They want us to live with it. No, Leah whispered. It's more than that. She held up the latest photo again, her finger trembling against the words, only next. They're not just watching, she said. They're replacing. That night we checked into another motel, the cheapest we could find, but neither of us slept. Every creak of the building felt like a countdown. At 2:11 a.m., a motion alert lit my phone. I opened the camera feed, and my blood froze. The lens showed our motel room, but not live. The angle was wrong. It was from above, ceiling corner, looking down at me and Leah sitting on the bed. Except in the feed, we weren't moving. We were asleep. Perfectly still, heads tilted just so, faces calm. Leah leaned over my shoulder. Her breath hitched. That's not us. The dog growled at the ceiling, the same spot where the feed's angle came from. On the screen, the still version of me opened its eyes. And smiled. The screen shook in my hands. I dropped the phone onto the bedspread, but the image stayed burned into my vision, me, but not me, lying there, smiling up at the unseen lens. Leah whispered. That's not a recording. It's now. The dog barked furiously at the ceiling corner, claws scraping the carpet. I forced myself to look again. The feed showed us unmoving, doppelgangers stretched across the bed. The not me blinked once, deliberate, as though to prove it wasn't a photograph. Then the not Leah turned her head, slow as a hinge, and stared straight into the camera. No! Leah gasped, backing away. The screen went black. We didn't wait. We grabbed the dog, our bags, and ran barefoot into the night. The motel clerk shouted after us, but his voice barely cut through the rush of blood in my ears. On the road, Leah was shaking so badly the keys rattled in her hand. They're copying us, she said. Replacing us, just like the notes said. I stared at the sky through the windshield, every cloud now a lid, every shadow a hatch. Copies for what? She didn't answer. We drove until dawn, pulling into a rest stop where trucks idled like beasts. We collapsed onto a picnic table, the dog whining, too tired to fight sleep anymore. But sleep came in jolts. I dreamed of ceilings peeling open, of pale faces pressing down, of smiles stretched so wide they cracked the skin. When I woke, the sun was up, and another envelope lay on the table beside my hand. Leah was still asleep, the dog curled against her. My fingers shook as I opened the envelope. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No photo this time. Just instructions typed neat. Return to your apartment. Sit in the living room. Look up when we say. Smile when we say. You'll understand then. And below the text, 3 pennies taped in a row, shiny, dark, shiny. I felt my throat close. The dog stirred, pawing at the paper, whining low. Leah woke, saw the note, and went pale. They don't just want to replace us, she whispered. They want us to agree to it. And before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A new message, no sender. Just one word in all caps. Look. An instinct, betrayal, fear, whatever it was, I did. I tilted my head back. And from the shadow of the rest stop awning, a face leaned down. Mine. Smiling. The grin above me was wrong. My face, but stretched, warped, as though it had been practiced too long in the dark. The jaw hung wider, the teeth too even. My own eyes stared down, but empty, like lenses instead of organs. Leah yanked me backward, shouting, Don't look! Her voice cracked. The dog lunged at the air, barking at the awning, but by the time I blinked, the face was gone. Just corrugated steel, harmless and ordinary. But ordinary no longer meant safe. The notes still sat on the table. The 3 pennies had slipped loose, clinking against the wood in a neat line. I shoved them into my pocket, though I didn't know why. Maybe proof, maybe penance. We can't go back, I said. They're not asking, Leah whispered. They're telling. We drove back anyway. Not because we wanted to, but because the longer we tried to escape, the tighter the net seemed to close. Envelopes at every stop, photos in every ceiling. The road didn't lead away from them, it led in circles. By dusk, the building loomed again. Riverside. The place where it started. Police tapes still fluttered at the edges, but the front doors were unlocked. The complex looked deserted, like a carcass stripped bare. Inside my old unit, the air was stale, thick with plaster dust. The hatch in the ceiling had been screwed shut with shiny tamper-proof bolts, but the screws were loose. Someone had been here since. Leah's hand shook on my arm. We shouldn't. But the note in my pocket weighed heavier than her grip. I pulled the chair under the hatch, climbed up, and unscrewed the bolts. The panel dropped into my hands with a sigh of stale air. Above us, silence. Dust motes drifted in the beam of my flashlight. Then coins. Dozens of pennies glued in neat rows along the joists, forming a trail deeper into the crawlspace. Shiny, dark, shiny, over and over, leading away into the dark. I climbed first, the wood groaning beneath me. Leah followed reluctantly, the dog tucked against her chest. The crawlspace smelled of rust, sweat, and bleach, the same scent that had haunted me since the beginning. The pennies caught the flashlight in brief sparks, like a path of eyes watching us. They weren't random. They led. We crawled, careful, knees sinking into insulation. The silence pressed close, broken only by the hiss of our breathing. Halfway in, I froze. Ahead, the pennies ended at a wooden crate. Small, unmarked, shoved between two joists. Leah whispered, "Don't open it." But I already was. Inside, another envelope. Larger, thicker. My name typed in bold. Beneath it, a second one, Leah's. We opened them together. Inside each was a single photograph. Hers showed me, sleeping in her bed. Mine showed her, sleeping in mine. Both angles were from above. Both taken recently. And in the corner of each frame, faint but visible, was the same figure, a pale man with no mouth. Just a smile carved into skin. We scrambled back, hitting our heads on the joists. The photos slipped, fluttering into the dust, but I couldn't bring myself to pick them up. The carved smile was etched into my brain already. "What does it mean?" Leah gasped. "They're showing us," I said, throat dry. "That they're always here. Even when we're awake." The dog growled low, ears pinned. From deeper in the crawl space came a sound, the scrape of wood against wood, a dragging weight. Then, faintly, the same whisper we'd heard before, syllables broken, not language but ritual. We aimed the flashlight. At the far end of the crawl space, something shifted. A shape unfolding from the shadows, pale skin glistening, eyes fixed on us. The mouth was wrong, too wide, carved into the flesh with surgical precision, teeth shining wet. It began to crawl toward us, faster than we could move. We bolted. Fell out of the hatch in a tangle of limbs, slammed the panel shut, and shoved the chair beneath it. But even as we gasped for air, we heard it above us, fingers drumming on the hatch in a rhythm. Tap. 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 And then, faintly, a whisper through the plaster. "Smile." We fled the unit, the building, the street. But we didn't get far. Every screen we passed flickered, TVs in windows, digital billboards, even a phone on display in a store. All showed the same feed. Us. Running down the street, clutching the dog, faces pale and frantic. We stopped dead. The footage was live. Cameras followed from above, unseen but perfect. The city itself had become their ceiling. On the screen, a message scrolled in black. "You are the last tenants." My pocket grew heavy. I pulled out the 3 pennies. They were warm, as if held by someone else moments before. Leah grabbed my wrist. "Throw them away." But I couldn't. Because the coins weren't just markers. They were tokens. They were keys. And somewhere above us, the mouthless man was waiting for me to use them. That night, we found ourselves drawn back to the complex again. Not by choice. Every road, every turn led back. Inside, the halls were darker now, lights dead, doors open like mouths. We followed the penny trail again, deeper into the crawl. At the end, a hatch we hadn't seen before. This one opened upward, into a wide space humming with the sound of fans. We climbed. The room above was cavernous, filled with monitors stacked wall to wall. Each screen showed a different tenant, different building, different ceiling angle. Hundreds of lives watched from above. And in the center of the room, nailed to the floorboards, was a chair. On the seat, another envelope. This one said nothing but next. Inside, a single penny. Shiny. Behind us, something shifted. And then the whisper again, right at my ear. Sit. I froze. Leah's hand crushed mine. The dog whined, pulling back, ears flat. The chair was crude, splintered wood, but it radiated intent. Whoever sat there would not stand again. No, Leah hissed. We're not playing their game. But the monitors flickered in response, feeds switching. Now every screen showed us, frozen mid-decision. The angles multiplied, above, behind, even inside our own eyes. Smile. The whisper came again. Smile and stay. The pennies in my pocket burned like coals. My hand twitched toward them. Leah slapped my wrist away. They want you to sit. The whisper grew louder, no longer one voice but many, overlapping, a chorus of mouths carved into faces. Smile. 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 The chair waited. And so did they. Leah shoved me back, toward the hatch. We're leaving. But the dog barked once, high, sharp, and bolted forward, teeth snapping at the chair. Every monitor cut to black. Then, one by one, they lit again. Each showed the same image, not us, not tenants, just ceilings. Blank, waiting rectangles of plaster, vents, tiles. And written across every screen in black letters. If not you, then who? Leah's voice cracked. They're not asking. They're choosing. The chair creaked, wood straining as though someone unseen had settled into it. A shadow stretched long across the floorboards. And above us, the ceiling groaned. We bolted for the hatch, scrambling down into the crawl. Behind us, wood cracked. Something heavy moved in the monitor room, dragging chains or bones. The crawl space shuddered. Dust rained. Pennies clattered loose from the joists, raining down in a metallic storm. Leah screamed as one struck her cheek, leaving a red welt. The dog whined, pawing forward, desperate to escape. The hatch to the unit was ahead, half open, waiting. But just before we reached it, a face pushed through the insulation beside us. Not mouthless. Not smiling. My face. It whispered, "Next," and lunged. I fell backward, flashlight skittering. Leah grabbed my arm, yanking me through the hatching to the apartment. The dog scrambled after. The face didn't follow. It lingered in the crawl, watching, expressionless until the corners of its mouth twitched. Then it began to smile, wider and wider, until the skin tore. I slammed the hatch shut, bolted it, shoved the chair beneath. Silence. Then tap. 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 We staggered into the living room, gasping. The TV flickered on by itself. Static cleared into an image, me and Leah, standing exactly where we were. The camera angle was overhead, perfect. And then, slowly, the feed split in two. One side showed us. The other side showed our doubles, smiling, sitting calmly in the same room. Waiting. The doubles raised their hands in unison, pennies glinting between their fingers. They stacked them on the floor, shiny, dark, shiny. The TV text scrolled. One must stay. Leah clutched my arm. Don't look. But I already was. The doubles leaned closer to the lens, mouths stretching wider, voices overlapping in a hiss that filled the room. Smile. My pockets grew heavier. The coins inside rattled without my touch. The dog howled. The lights flickered. And then the ceiling above us began to crack, dust sifting down in slow, deliberate streams. Something was coming through. Something that already knew my face.